hired me, and I did that $9,000 job in like 3 weeks. And I got the same amount of money, but for less time because I realized.
Welcome back. My name's Tim, and this is Timo Paints. And in today's video, we got a very special guest, superstar on TikTok, also a small paint business owner, just like your boy here. So without further ado, Eric, welcome on to the show. I'm glad to have you here. Introduce yourself to the audience a little bit.
I'm Eric. I've been running Prime Painting for well over a decade now, originally from New York, and moved to North Carolina for a little better weather. We still get snow, but the winter season in New York is almost like a standstill when it comes to exteriors or trying to get inside people's homes with holidays, stuff like that.
What part of New York?
From Rochester originally. It's been great though. I worked for another company for about 8 months down here, getting paid salary. About $35,000. I got paid salary to do like kind of cleanup painting around other crews that they had, and then in the long run, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to go back to working for myself.
So how did you get started with that job? Did you know somebody, or did you like answer an ad in the paper? Or
yeah, actually, I just went looking for jobs online, like Craigslist, just for searching in North Carolina. So that by the time I got down here, I came down once to visit, check out the area, found a place to live, met with that boss. It was a good fit. It just I couldn't do it anymore. After working for yourself, you kind of get accustomed to your ways, and I did in New York for a couple of years, so working for someone else is tough.
So when you started painting originally, like that first time, did you want to start painting, or is it just kind of fell, like that's just kind of how it worked out?
It was just kind of how it worked out. My dad got a discount on painting his house if he got me a job with that company because they needed help. So I kind of got traded into it, and I did that for 4 summers, and then I went to college during my college years, and it was a great start.
So this was in high school. How old are you now? In your 30s?
Yep. This is actually just out of high school. So I worked for College Pro Painters up north, which is like CertaPro. One of those big national international brands, and they were good. They were good for me to learn to start, but eventually I branched off and started doing it on my own. Just charged more than I made, but less than they charged, and tried it on my own.
You wanted to kind of branch out and do your own thing. So when you first started getting clients, how did you start your marketing, and did you have like a budget to start your company with?
No, I had no budget. I had a brush and a roller, some motivation, I guess, to get out there and try to do it for myself. I did what College Pro had done. I followed their ways a lot for how it's how I was taught. And I would go around and made flyers up, and would go around and flyer neighborhoods. And then the following week, go knock on the doors and interact with people. And I'd often get a handful of jobs that day. And then in the future, get jobs over the next couple of weeks, and became eventually, now I just don't advertise at all. It's just a self-revolving wheel of word of mouth.
So you said you would go out, hand out a lot of flyers, and then the next week kind of follow up on that same neighborhood where you passed out the flyers?
Yeah, I guess it's cold calling, but in reality, it's a little bit warm calling because they have a heads up you're coming with the flyer, but it gets people thinking about it, and oftentimes no one will call you dropping a flyer off in their mailbox, but the follow-up conversation is huge.
When you started out, did you just start rolling all by yourself? Did you have like a helper, or like a brother, or like a family member, somebody helping you out?
Did start on my own. There was actually a couple of times my mom came and helped me. She put on her big yellow kitchen gloves and came out and helped me stain the deck once. I don't know, maybe that's probably a little embarrassing looking back, but at the time I needed the help, and it was good. I was on my own for the most part in the beginning, though. I had a lot of help for, like, if I needed funding, my parents would have been there to lend me a hand, but I had no loan or anything. I just kind of slowly accumulated every tool I have week after week over the last 10, 15 years.
So did you reinvest, like as you were making the money, you had to like live off that money too, right?
As you say, in New York, I was staying at home with my parents, so it makes it a little easier. Like starting a business when you don't have that mortgage payment or rent is a big help. I was investing in tools, but I wasn't investing in my growth in any way, shape, or form. And in the end, I relocated, so it would have been kind of a kick in the teeth if I had a big, paint community set up in New York. Now that I'm down here, I hit the ground running because I knew exactly what I wanted to do and didn't want to do after being in New York.
Do you have like any horror stories from being out on job sites?
I have a million horror stories.
What's the worst one that you got?
The worst job I've ever been a part of was working for a general contractor. And that's the first and last time I ever worked for a GC, because I prefer residential. I like working with homeowners who want me to be in their home. We ended up not getting paid a good portion of the job for something that had nothing to do with us. Bondo repair from the carpenter. We got the hit for it, and I would have had to take him to court, and I just didn't want any part to do with that. And all the other mistakes that I've made along the way, or my subs have made along the way, have been pretty easy to make right, because most people understand things happen. You trip and you fall, you drop a can of paint, you spill. We've spilled bright orange paint, ceiling to floor, windows, carpet, everything, because I had a sub fall off a ladder once. Reality, he's like, oh, we're about to replace the screens in this window. We had been painting the ceiling walls and and base. So we just repainted all that. They're replacing the carpet. So I've been very lucky.
What's like the biggest job, the biggest like payday that you've had?
It might be the job I'm currently on. I've done some really big homes, like 8,000 square foot, pretty much mansions. At the time, I didn't bid enough. So it should have been probably like a $20,000 job. I did it for 12 plus paint. But in the end, I'm doing a job now where I'm doing an interior that's 16,000 and it's a 5,000 square foot house. When you're working with customers, good customers in a nice clean AC environment where you can just rock and roll all day. You don't have to worry about rain and snow or anything else. It's just awesome to be able to hit the ground running every day and work around great people. You get to see a dog every day, and it's great. But I actually just made a video about this today. I originally was going to I did a bid for this customer years ago, and I charged about 1,500, or bid about 1,500 for a movie theater room, and they never hired me and said it was just bad timing. But everyone says that, so I kind of beat myself up on the price of it, and always looked back on a job I did get. And in the long run, I'm now doing that the rest of that house because it was just timing, and they did like my pricing and how responsible I was. They just didn't work out before a couple years ago. So it is kind of a little success story for me because I kicked myself like I should have charged less and I should have done something different or gone in there more professional. And in the reality is it doesn't matter. I got to stand by my guns and my pricing, and my price have gone up since then, and I still got the job because price wasn't a factor. And it's nice to be able to charge what I think I'm worth.
Once you raise your prices, the quality of customer goes up. So eventually I just decided, okay, this is my price. And people are like, geez, that's high. And I'm like, yeah, it is high. It is a high price. People will buy the top shelf wine because they don't want to pay for cheap wine, even though it's the same dang wine in each bottle. They'll buy the more expensive wine just because.
So, I did recently do a $9,000 job that took me 5 weeks. It's not bad. Me and one other person. Their neighbor across the street wanted a job, and I realized the prep that was involved in their type of homes because they were very similar, same builder. And it was an insane amount of prep. I spent like 2 weeks just prepping this home. And so that I went in and doubled my prep price for the second house. And they were like, oh, that's cool. That makes sense. And they hired me, and I did that $9,000 job in like 3 weeks. And I got the same amount of money, but for less time because I realized my mistakes. I adjusted. Honesty goes a long way. I try to be as open as possible. I show them my pricing. I show them how I break everything down and what each window frame costs and door frame. And yeah, I tell people to pick and choose. And as long as I'm getting paid, my 50 an hour or whatever I want to make per item, I don't care which items I do. But except for you're right with, like, let's say I'm painting a ceiling but not painting the walls. I've now got to tape and plastic all your walls off. The material price is all different. But I tell people, if you want me to do that without that, it's going to cost you more. I'm so grateful. I hear horror stories constantly. I've never had to put a lien on anyone's house. I've never had to do some of the crazy things I know a lot of painters have had to do, like not unheard of at all. My customers love me. I'm so grateful because I feel like I'm working with family every day. I have very weak contracts, to be honest. I probably should, maybe I don't put that in the thing, but I probably should have more, like I have a places to sign and an agreement on what we're doing, but I just don't ever come across those situations with the customers that I have. Where general contractor, on the other hand, that one, I wish I had more contracts in place than I had, but that's, what you're up against.
Go back in time and start all over, and you knew you were going to do exactly this, start a paint business. What would you do differently, if anything?
I don't know if I would have done a lot different. I think the slow growth is exactly what I needed because it gave me time to change the things I needed to change as I did them. The biggest mistakes I made didn't really cost me financially. They just cost me my time. And in the beginning, I wasn't that busy, so I had time to learn. And it was good because now when I come across stuff, I'm like, oh, I've done that before and I've failed at that before and I know what to do and not to do. But I needed those failures. I mean, to think that I could have gone out and hit a home run every time, that sounds great, but it's not realistic. Going back, I don't know if I could have really changed a whole lot. I was very great. I'm very grateful for the opportunities I've already had.
What advice would you give some of those newer guys?
Know what you're good at and what you can price accordingly and get some flyers and advertise that. And for me also, Nextdoor was a big help. I know you're talking about social media sites, but Nextdoor was a big one because when you think about who refers you, I go to my neighbor when I want to know who to build a fence when my neighbor has a good fence, and that's what Nextdoor offers too. So that's like free advertising. I mean, all that stuff. Flyers are pretty cheap, pennies. I don't know if that's the best advice. It is what got me to where I'm at, and it is what some big national companies do, and seems to work for them too.
These interviews, we usually try to come up with a word of the day. I ask the guest to think of a word of the day. What would you think the word of the day would be for this video?
Freedom.
So the word of the day is freedom. And it's because working for yourself, you do get a lot of freedom in your life. It creates a window for that. If you guys are still watching, go ahead and put freedom in the comment section and I'll hashtag you guys a real one. And again, I'll link Eric's social media channels top link in the description and the pinned comment, as well as his link tree. So if you guys are interested in anything, click on those. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.